You can't replace part of the brain. Like, you
treat them the same.
A source of truth for the MedTech industry.
Coexists with the province.
Robot understands things automatically.
Number one show in the MedTech industry.
So Stryker got ahead of that and changed in the 90s, built $1 billion company that held up high. A lot of things.
State of MedTech with your host, Omar and Khateeb.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Now, when it comes to selling and marketing in our industry, there's a lot of different players that hold a very important seat at the table when it comes to value-based care, and more importantly, the decisions made as to what what a technology hospital decides to adopt. So today, for the very first time in our show's history, I have somebody who actually is the head of and runs the purchasing materials department. And I wanted to sort of introduce this with how I found out about this person. So today we're joined by Jeff Stankowski. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us. First of all, where are you calling in from?
I'm calling you from Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, for those who are watching on YouTube and or Spotify, I'm going to bring up a image. This is kind of just to show like how did Jeff get on my radar? And the way he got on my radar is he made this post. I'm going to read it for those who are driving. You don't have to look at the screen. It says, all of ConMed, and he tagged Jordan John Felix, who's, I'm very proud to say, a student of my medical sales program. You go on to say, I have to report that I got a cold call message on LinkedIn today that I want you all to know about. It was amazing. This was hands down top of the game marketing and professionalism. Jordan John Felix represented your company and your fundamentals to the core. Jordan, whatever ConMed is paying you, you need a bonus for this message sent to me. I'm not joking, Jordan's manager. It was fire. You had me hooked and engaged to meet you. I will be talking about this to everyone. I chose to not post your message because of the advantage it gives in your industry, but my goodness, I wanted to. Well done, and keep flying, Jordan. Parentheses, I will always remember it. I always remember it was you who taught this old guy a new trick. So I love that, because rarely do we see people post about these things. You know, reps kind of get mistreated quite a lot in the hospital, and sometimes a lot of times they deserve it, in my opinion. But without saying too much, like, and I want to get into like your life, in purchasing and give an insider's look on that. But real quick on that, what exactly did he send to you, and how did it get your attention?
Well, the most important thing that happens in my role is we get bombarded by the sales hooks, the hey, I can save you a lot of money. Hey, I can do this. Hey, I can do that. Jordan didn't start out that way. He said, hello, I've got, a presentation I'd like to give you, on LinkedIn. So I clicked on it, and it was actually, him talking about his company, about what he's about, what his goals are, and just quite frankly, are you interested? Not I want to convert you. I want to do this. I want to do that. And then after the little presentation he provided, he had a calendar in there that you clicked on, and it made you feel like guilty for not, like, man, this guy just went through and he did this impressive. I need to set up a meeting with him. So, I'm like, do I click a time to meet with Jordan? I mean, it was just, it was so professionally done, because it made you like, well, what's he have to offer? ConMed doesn't offer too much in our business. And that's how he hooked me.
That's amazing. And I think the most important thing I want to touch on is that, in your role especially, you're so busy day to day. And so he thought about, how do I make this easier for my prospective customer? So he recorded a video, did the presentation, and gave you the power to choose a counter invite, which, compared to what most people do, which is they try and bombard you with emails and try and get you to book a time with them, in which case they're going to come to you in person or have you book a Zoom link and you sit down and watch a presentation that could have just been done in 5 minutes through a video that you could have watched on your own time. So I just absolutely love that. And a big shout out to Jordan, and shout out to ConMed as well. ConMed has done, in my opinion, a really good job over the last few years with their marketing. Lisa Donnelly's doing an amazing job there. One of their sales leaders, Aaron Chester, is fantastic. They've done a really good job over there at ConMed. So a big shout out to them. So let's start with you, which is like, First of all, what does it mean to be a purchasing materials manager? What's your day-to-day like? I know I want you to talk also about the center that you're at, but give us a little bit of an insight on that.
Okay. Well, the main thing that, my role is I'm pretty much the guardian of cost. Make sure all the supplies are there that's needed for the doctors. Another big role of mine is actual contract negotiations of, moving this to that area and this to that area. But the majority of what it is making sure that, what's coming in the facility is going out of the facility. And it's real fine line between the two. When you go in the hospital, they usually set up like a PAR system where you order 20 of these items on the shelf and there will always live 20 items. In the ASC setting, it's not necessarily that cut and dry. It changes your whole mindset. So with for the 11 years I had in the hospital industry, I go into the ASC setting and it completely changed my point of view to where now as a purchasing manager, I'm actually looking at the schedule and I have to pretty much know kind of like what they need for the surgeries because, in the ASC setting, we don't have an endless funnel of money that we can just be like, we're going to put this on there, put this on there, put this on there for the what ifs. So that's kind of my role that is a little bit different from like the hospital setting.
Got it. So yeah, and for context for the audience, so you're at an ambulatory surgery center, and I think you mentioned it's predominantly physician owned, correct? What made you make that switch, and what are some of the key dynamics there?
Okay. Well, when I started looking into like healthcare, I read an article by a guy named Dr. Ernest Codman. He was a physician over 100 years ago, and he had just this left field philosophy that everyone mocked, and it was the end result idea, and that everything about the patient's procedure and outcome can be analyzed and tracked. At the time, doctors were furious at him, saying, you're messing us up. We're all getting paid. It's all being good, and he just stuck to it. And this foundation is like the core of my mindset. I believe 100% that I need to be focused in tracking the overall cost. This is my value that I give in healthcare because I don't perform the surgeries and I don't do the medical advice. So I pull myself in and I focus on the cost of the healthcare. And, this is kind of a left field idea because, with these big corporations and stuff like that, it's all based on, your GPO. And in, my industry, in the ASC, what made it extremely challenging is that value when you're not getting the insurance reimbursement that everyone in the game's used to. So, I worked for Center for Sports Medicine. That is really the only company that I get financially paid for my service. I'll tell you a little bit about my surgery center. It's a 37,992 square foot ambulatory surgery center. We have 8, surgical suites, including one fully integrated with digital video and recording capabilities for teaching. That's very important. We also have 2 spine suites for our spine program. We have 40 pre-op rooms, 40 post-op rooms. It's a big circle, and a very comfortable waiting room. But the important thing that brought me to the center was my thoughts on value-based care is we are a 100% doctor-owned private facility. My team, my doctors, everyone, we fully believe that this is the future of healthcare and modern medicine. I believe Americans are getting tired of the upcharging from, the high vendor costs in the hospitals. And, the doctors at Center for Sports Medicine have been pioneers in modern healthcare. I mean, they're just all really based on that. Let's move our patients, our community, from the hospitals where they're being upcharged to a private facility where we can actually offer cash pay solutions that aren't absolutely ridiculous. It's really, really exciting.
And I love that model too, because I think a lot of people are fed up with it. I mean, me personally, I have health insurance, but whenever I go to a large facility and everything, I always get this weird bill where, they got paid out. Like I had some imaging done. They got paid out quite a lot of money from my insurance, but they still wanted some money from me. And I was like, but why? Like, this doesn't make sense. And so I think giving that option and having sort of business model innovation in healthcare is super important. And I love that physicians are leading it. In your role, how do you think about purchasing? And especially when it comes to like new technologies, because new technologies can be great for the patient and for outcomes, but also there could be added cost to it. How do you start weighing that out, and what kind of things do you take into consideration?
Well, I'm glad you asked. We have a company, former doctor of Center for Sports Medicine. His name is Dr. Scott Hodges. And he created a company called 3Spine. Now, 3Spine is a startup company, about 20 years old, and they offer a product which is the first lumbar disc. It's called the Modus. It has, it's early in its stages. He's done a total of 19 surgeries in South Africa, 89 pilot surgeries in the Cayman Islands, and 158 USA FDA trial surgeries. And we started this trial off at our center with one of our doctors, Dr. Benjamin Geddes. Now, this here, is what you're talking about, new technology. This is something that's never been done, and it came to our world because we are 100% on leading new technology. One of the good things about 3Spine is we have seen what it actually does. Our only option is spine fusion right now for the lower lumbar discs. And this is a new option. And it's one of those things right now that it's one of those things right now that is in the FDA trials, and everyone's up in an uproar because it means that you're preserving the upper and lower discs. So it's going to take out all those repeat customers. So it's revolutionary. And the greatest thing about it is the whole premises of 3Spine is you can do this in a ambulatory surgery center.
Fantastic.
Is that kind of like what you were talking about there?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I'm wondering also, in this case, it was a surgeon you were familiar with, but when you see, if a rep is able to get a hold of you and they sit down and have a presentation and walk you through things, what are some things that you need to see in order for you to make a good decision as to whether you should acquire new technology, take it to the physician, have a further discussion? Like, what kind of things are most important to you from the purchasing side?
Well, the most important thing in my field is you must always remember, I'm not qualified to make medical decisions. I'm only here to make it financially make sense. A lot of people that sit in my seat say, oh, no, the doctor doesn't need that. Oh, no, the doctor doesn't need that. My approach is a little different. My approach is, thank you for your information. It seems really, really neat. Let me check with my doctor. So then I take all the information and I do a little bit of research on basically anything that I'm going to present my doctor to just kind of give my opinion. And then I take it actually to my doctor and I ask his direct question. Is this something that you're interested in? Doctor says yes. Then I go to work. Okay, doctor wants to see it. Here it is. This is what we're currently using. Why am I going to pay X amount of dollars more for this technology when I'm not getting reimbursed X amount of dollars for the surgery? So that's kind of my outtake. We don't have like a VAT committee or this, and everyone looks at it and they see like who makes the most money off of it. And it's just, it's very simple. If it makes sense and it does add value, then by all means, I'm going to find a financial way to get it in our center.
Is there so in that process, it sounds like the most important thing is that the economic story has to make sense to you and the ASC before you even take it to a clinician. In some cases, it could be that a new technology might cost more money, but there's a value there that's worth doing that. Are there situations where, if you don't have to come up with a specific one, but maybe the more specific, the better, where you were presented some kind of technology and then the math just didn't work out and it wasn't even worth you going and having a discussion with a physician about, over?
I have to say, so far in my 4 years at the surgery center, the only thing that we really wanted, and we loved the technology, but it just wouldn't financially work out, was by Trace Medical, and it was the Lapiplasty bunion system. Just the price of that, and the technology's there, and yes, it's a good product, but I just couldn't get our teams of Trace and myself with the reimbursement of the insurance to get their product in my center. It still makes me a little upset that we couldn't actually get it, but that's part of it. That's part of that, that equation: value equals quality divided by cost.
Got it. I love that you share that. In the situations where, it's a new technology and you don't have the luxury, let's say, reimbursements, and I'll use sort of a easier example, which is like, let's say some imaging or robotic system,
Mm-hmm.
right? How do you look, think about evaluating those things where it's like, okay, there's no reimbursement for this. What are the levers of value that come into play that make you say, yeah, we should explore this further?
Well, at our facility, we have the luxury of having two total joint robots. We have the Depues Velaeus, and we have the Stryker Mako. Now, in the outcome of both of those procedures, you actually lose more money on using the robot because of the extra added items. You have the extra drapes, you have the extra saw, you have the extra pins, you have the extra, array set. But that adds value because the cuts are more precise. The imaging is designed for the human anatomy. It takes a lot of the this will be good enough kind of a cut to a precision cut. So that's one of the main things that I have to say, like, does it help your bottom end using the Mako? Not really. But does it help the patient? Absolutely. That's why we have two robots for both platforms.
That makes sense. It sounds like a lot of it is based on, because, post-care, you want to make sure the patient has a great outcome. The other thing is that the patient might come back to the hospital or a family member. So like there's a customer service aspect of it. So I think that sort of goes more into that equation. Are there scenarios where, and again, I like business model innovation just as I like technical innovation, but have you been in a situation where you have, let's say, new technology and everything, you want to get it in, the math didn't work out, but you were able to get creative with the company and the manufacturer about, the cost and pricing and everything? What does that look like usually?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. Right now, I have a doctor and he is 100%. He's actually the medical director of Tensor Surgical. Tensor Surgical is all transosseous rotator cuff repair. Now, what this allows is that since he doesn't use anchors to do his rotator cuff, it allows more room for biologics. So with him doing that and changing to where, you're not using $400 to $700 anchors and using 4 of them, and you're using the value-based transosseous gold standard, he can start adding biologics to his procedures, which I've been talking with ConMed over the BioBrace. Right now, the BioBrace is really, really a wonderful product, but just for our market, it's just too expensive. Our reimbursement, for those types of surgeries, they don't do the repair and the biologic. But I have found that with Dr. Sanders using Tensor across all insurance platforms, except for TRICARE, he's making a profit, and a significant profit. So he's able to venture out and say, I'm going to use this product. Is it okay? And I start crunching the numbers, and I'm like, oh, you'll break even. So yes, use it. And so he's like, okay, we're in a business to take care of people and make enough money that we can survive and everyone can go home and be with their families. But what's different about our ASC, our surgery center, is not everything's about money. Everything's about the patient care. What's the best outcome? There's been multiple times where we've walked away and we've actually lost money on surgeries. And you know what? That's okay, because you're taking care of someone's loved one. But when you find companies like Tensor that give you unbelievable value in the exact same quality repairs, you can reach out and branch out and bring in other things that will just, intensify what you're trying to do. And so with that, I sat down with one of the some of the top people at ConMed and said, I would really like to start using your product. I mean, it's important to me. And so they're like, well, what do you need it to be? So, I just threw out a number. My numbers are to be as fair as possible. I was like, I'm thinking, I don't want to get in the weeds or anything, but, you need to come down a couple levels here to get market share in our facility. So that's kind of, how I find, like, you can add the mix of, value, and then you can add the mix of, advanced technology.
That makes sense. I'm also wondering, one of the things that every company is trying to solve for is for every stakeholder that they're trying to reach and educate and influence, it comes down to understanding, well, where are these people spending their time, where they get their information? So in the world of of purchasing, where does Jeff Stankowski and other Jeff Stankowskis go? Do you guys have conferences? Do you have like an online website? Do you use mainly LinkedIn? Like, where do you go to exchange information and learn and even discover new products?
That's very interesting. Purchasing managers, and I'm in the group. We're not really out there. I'm one of the few that vocally express my thoughts, how I feel. If you see my LinkedIn post, I'm all about Tensor. I'm all about 3-spine. I'm all about this new technology. And, there's no benefit, financial benefit for me talking about Tensor, talking about 3-spine, talking about ConMed, talking about, BioBrace. These are all, even talking about Stryker. So we kind of sit back and just kind of stay in our lane. Not too many people go out there and stand up to, the big corporate guys and say, nah, we're not going to pay that. Here's what we're going to do. So it's very hard because we've all been kind of in that world of, we just accept it. And I'm kind of on the fence saying, no, we don't have to accept it, because if we keep accepting it, we're not going to be successful in changing the needle. So there is no platform or meeting group or, because where I'm at, I'm on a platform where I've had actual reps come in to the center unannounced and go to my administrator and ask for me to be fired because I'm not playing in their sandbox. Just because I'm like, no, we're not doing that. No, that's not acceptable. I can buy product B.
What do you mean by that? Like they're trying to force you to purchase and use their products, and you're not willing to play. No pressure. Give us a little bit more details behind that, because this is fascinating to hear from you.
Yeah. So more detail in this is, when you're presented with these tough decisions of how we need to cut cost and where some money is to be shaved off of, the recipient doesn't like hearing a lot of what I have to say. Like, yeah, I understand that, this is where you want to be, but this is where I need you to be. So they kind of blow over me because they're used to, the materials manager is just a puppet, just a position player. And they've got to go to the vice president, this person and this person and this person. Well, at the ASC, all roads kind of stop at my seat first. And if I don't like that and they're not willing to talk, I stop what I'm doing and I bring in one of my teammates because my message isn't being heard. So maybe I'm saying it wrong, I'm saying it incorrectly. So I get another person to come in and basically format what I'm saying in a different light or a different view. And then they get really upset at both of us, and then they bypass us and go to, our director or our CEO, saying this isn't right. And, and then they come in there and they say that I'm bullying them in pricing and, I've heard all of it. So that's kind of what I mean. I've, reps have come in there and said, some of the comments I've made and some of the things that I've said are inappropriate. And, no one's happy for what we're doing in our community on the sense of value-based care, except for our customers and our clients.
And it's great to hear this, because it's almost like in the world of, on the healthcare delivery side, that there's a startup world occurring where you have these large health systems that are run by corporations, et cetera. And it's just very much about like how much money are we making. And then you have ASCs, which are like, they're kind of like startups, and they're a lot more nimble. And what's nice to hear is that, and this is kind of exciting for not only new products, but even new companies, new startups, to say that, there are people like Jeff in the world who are willing to work with us because they're sick and tired of the larger strategics leveraging their weight, and they want an alternative. And I think that's also good for the strategics because, it allows the strategics to not only adapt to what's best for the ASCs and for the patient, but even consider, hey, you know what? We're getting beat by this company, so let's go ahead and acquire that company, put it into our bag, accelerate the adoption of it. And I think at the end of the day, the patient always wins, because what we don't want to see is these startups not get traction, and then they fail. Because then, the larger companies, they're just too big to innovate, and the innovation doesn't happen, and, you end up with a bad situation for patients.
Very much so. The most, I guess I need to word this correctly, but the best advice I can give for anybody that's in an ASC setting is you have to leave your pride at the door, and you have to ask and ask and ask and ask. And when you ask, you can't ask for things that are unrealistic. Like, an example, hey, I want this piece of material for $5. And right now they're charging, $300 for this item. I mean, you have to be in the realm of, does it make sense? Is it a win-win for both players? Can someone come in and make money selling this? Because we don't want to go to a repless system. We need to make sure our reps are taken care of because we rely on them. And, the other thing is you have to have an extremely tight team. One of the biggest fails in the hospital system is no one talks to anybody. It's this person has it. He doesn't do anything with it. It gets lost. Next person looks at it, says, okay, let's do it. Doesn't talk to the first person that already said why they didn't want to do it. So that can't go on. And that is the hospital, mindset is nobody knows what's going on. And talking to people in my position, talking to people that are boots on the ground, get lost because it's up here with the top tier, individuals where they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So, that's the main thing that, my observation of how we change and we be change agents for the better of, the world is by communicating to the point where we're all aligned. Because if I were to go to, to one of these vendors and say, hey, I want you to drop your price to this amount of money just because I want to make myself feel good and I want to go brag to people about what I'm doing. No, I ask them to come down so we all can make money and the client, which is our patient, actually gets the benefit. And I can smile knowing that me, myself, my team, my doctors sitting in our seats fought for everything that we could possibly give them within the constructs of care.
Yeah, I love that. And it makes so much sense. And it's refreshing to hear that too. As we kind of round out the interview, like I do have sort of some fun and interesting questions for you. But, we have a lot of reps who are listening to this. But if I were to ask you from your experience, what were some of the sort of the worst ways reps tried to get in front of you and or influence you? What would be that list of things like do not do this? Like what kind of things come to mind?
Well, coming from the hospital, in my seat, we would get a lot of reps that would come up to you and said, the doctor's just PO'd. You didn't have this. You need to order this and get this in here. And he's just not accepting it. And so you would be, as someone that isn't actually friends with all of his doctors, go, oh man, I don't want to make the doctor mad, and you would order it. When I went to the ASC, I would have this same tactic come up to me and say, hey, the doctor was really mad. You didn't have what he needed. So I'd be like, oh, okay. So I would stop what I'm doing. I would actually go straight to that doctor and I would have a conversation with him. And he'd be like, I don't know what he's talking about. I just wanted to know why it wasn't here and what am I using? So that gets you shut down with me. Don't use my doctor as a selling point for your product. Because I talk to my doctors. I ask them, why is it important when I have product B, C, D? Am I, I don't want to stock for you 8 items. So that hurts your bottom line. Depending on the rep that walks in the room, I want you to kind of just be, universal with the group. So that way we can, tighten our inventory down. And so that's the number one pet peeve. If you tell me my doctor's upset and that I have to order something immediately, I just, even if my doctor was upset, it's not your job to tell me anything about inventory and what I need to order. Does that make sense?
So
That's
it makes a lot of no, but it makes sense. And I think, if we look at the history of medical sales, a lot of it in the early days, I mean, I don't want to say early days, like from the 80s, 90s, all the way through the 2000s was very much about leverage and like fear and scarcity, which worked back then, but nowadays it just doesn't work. And so I think that very much like a lot of things in business these days, coming from a point of view of empathy and more importantly, collaboration is going to work. I think there's still ways to be persuasive and influential. Jordan is a great example of that. But, you know, I think the days of like, you're going to leverage somebody into fear to do something are kind of gone. You know, if anything, I think it makes things even harder because people just dig their heels and say, "Yep, not going to do it then." So I'm happy you share that. And then like just on the flip side, maybe some of the best examples. I mean, Jordan was one, but what are some great examples of how reps and companies reached out? We covered a lot already, but just on a tactical side, what are some great examples of ways that reps got their products in with you?
I'm going to refer back to Tensor Surgical. My doctor had the luxury of a other physician come in and shadow him on transosseous technique. So my doctor brought in the CEO, Justin Anderson, and we did our formalities. Hey, how's it going? Nice to meet you all. Thanks for making the trip. You know, the niceties. And then, you know, he went back there. This was the day before the doctor was coming in. And, you know, he sees me in the hallway and he comes up to me and Justin's like, hey, do you mind if I look at our tensor trays to make sure that the doctor has everything needed and everything that is, you know, ready for the surgery because, you know, he's going to be teaching someone and I don't want any kind of blemish or any type of, you know, thing that can go wrong. So it's like, yeah, absolutely. So I go get his tensor trays and put him down. And then he starts opening them and looking at them. And I come back about 20 minutes later and he goes, hey, Jeff, he's like, these trays are in really, really rough shape. It's like, you know, the doctor has really got a lot of life out of these and they're just not up to par. And so I was like, oh man, he goes, do you mind if I, you know, get these all uniformed, get them stocked correctly and change out some of the, you know, the materials and, you know, get it all up to where it needs to be. And I was like, well, hold on. You're going to have to give me a quote before I can say yes. And he looked at me just puzzled, Omar, like, what do you mean? And I'm like, yeah, it's like, I don't mind, you know, upgrading the trays and everything if he truly needs it. But, you know, I need to know how much we're talking here. I'm not going to just say yes and then get a bill on the back end. He goes, no, Jeff. I'm doing this for no charge because your doctor is showing my product to a potential customer. Floored me, completely set me to like, who is this guy? This doesn't happen in my world. And so that's when, after that one encounter with him, set me on a path of like hard diving into Tensor Surgical. 100% like, what's this guy about? What's going on? And so then I started looking him up online and he was still there. And so then I went to him and I was like, hey, Justin, since my doctor is the medical director for your company, how much of a discount are you giving us to make this to where it's across the board financially set up? He goes, Jeff, I'm not giving you a discount. That would throw off my data. And what I'm trying to prove to the world is that this can be done. And that in itself, and it was an end story. I will be a Tensor supporter for the end of my life because the value of not upcharging anybody, not discounting anybody, it's a flat fee, it's affordable, is probably one of the best rep sells that really sunk into me, because that was what it really was. You know, he was the CEO, but he rep sold me that day to never look back.
That's amazing. I love that you shared that. And it's, again, it goes back to sort of a traditional way of doing business, which is just finding creative ways to meet at a halfway point where it's a win-win for everybody and not like just leveraging people. Jeff, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a blast. I want to thank the audience and remind you, you're pretty active on LinkedIn, so go give Jeff a follow. You just look him up as Jeff Stankowski on LinkedIn, and he's based out of Tennessee. And with that being said, I'm your host, Omar M. Khateeb. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you all next time. Thanks for checking out this episode. If you want to do me a big favor and join so many other people who have helped grow this podcast, take a second and look below. If you're on Apple, give us 5 stars and write a short review. If you're on Spotify, just give us 5 stars. And if you're on YouTube, hit the like button. And most importantly, if you can, subscribe. We release so many different episodes that you may miss. Be sure to subscribe and turn your notifications on. You get extra points with me if you subscribe across all 3 channels. Thank you so much. And if you felt like this episode helped you, send this to somebody who'd really enjoy and appreciate it. Share and spread the love. We'll see you all next time.